Hi people, and hello my Chilligan Carnage crew. Welcome to an episode of Live Listen Erased, and this is the end of year list. That's right, we're getting to that point where every YouTuber is talking about, of course, what is their top 10 of XYZ for the end of the year. And this list in particular is the top 10 worst albums of 2024, as of course judged by me. So here we go, and hey, if you don't like the list, comment below, or if you think I missed anything, make sure to comment as well and let me know what your list was. So without further ado, let's get into this. You know, when news broke out that Mark Knopfler was releasing a new solo album, I was actually kind of excited to hear what he had made. But here we are looking at this as the worst album of the year. I don't feel confident in saying that this is anywhere, of course, near the top 10 material, but for me it was a very boring, dull, lifeless kind of record, and that's the worst thing I guess you can make at the end of the day. I was very dissatisfied in regards to what the music was on offer, and of course this is talking about One Deep River, you know, and the music on hand is just so blasé, very forgettable, and in the end I was planning to be doing a review about this, but just lost faith and said screw it, I'm not even going to be bothering doing a review on this. I can't waste my time, I've got other stuff to do. And I think that is one of the worst things that I can do as, you know, someone who owns this YouTube channel, is to give up making a review, because I don't really want to say bad words about Mark. I think he's a fantastic guitarist, and at the end of the day he writes a lot of great material, has done so, but after 40 odd years in the business, it is very evident that he's just kind of coasting, I guess, on his laurels, and it's so abundantly true, I guess, especially when you're listening to this record. Like, I guess Mark Knopfler fans out there are going to be out there defending the works that he's done, and this is a good album, but can you really say that? Can you say that with deep down honesty, that this is actually a solid album? It's got fantastic tracks. No, there's nothing memorable on this record. I forgot everything as soon as I listened to it. I added it to the playlist saying, yep, this is pretty bad, and I completely forgot about the record, and I've had to go back and listen to it now just to get my mind around it. And again, here I am listening to the album, and I'm going, oh my god, can this thing end? So yes, that is why I'm putting it on the list, but that is why I'm also going to put it low on the list, because hey, Mark still writes good tunes, and it's a lot better than the crap that'll come up next. When Kaiser Chiefs had announced that they had their record, the Easy 8th album, I was, well, very vacant when it came to it. I mean, this is a band that I just hadn't listened to in a very long time, and I was wondering just what the hell they had been writing music about since the last time I heard them. It's been a long time since I did it, and my god, could this be another record that was so forgettable again? It's a long problem, a long-standing problem at the end of the day, with a fair few of these albums that are going to be at the very bottom of the list, you could say. You know, there's numbers 10, 9, 8, and all the rest. A lot of these records are just plain old, forgettable, dull, and lifeless, and I'm going to be repeating these points a few times, but, you know, at the end of the day, the Kaiser Chiefs have just written a very, very dull and shit album, I should also add as well. It's so forgettable that I just didn't even know what to make of it at the end of it. I mean, I was on holidays when I was listening to this album thinking, oh yeah, this could be a jovial little affair. No, it wasn't even fun to listen to. It was just a drag. It felt like homework at the end of the day, and I just can't be bothered listening to this anymore. You know, Kaiser Chiefs were an interesting band back in the day, but they were, I guess, a flash in the pan, I should say, sorry, because, you know, they had their time, they had some interesting music, and they've done really nothing since. They've evolved, they've changed their style, and made it more, I don't know, jangly or a bit more updated to today's sound, and I just do not like it. There's a lot of bands that have obviously taken over their cues moving forward into this modern sound, and obviously sounded much, much better in their place, and they just haven't played, and they've just been... Well, Post Malone did warn us that he was going to go country once he turned a certain age, and once he turned that certain age, he made F1 Trillion. And yes, this is an album that's going to get me a lot of hate as far as, you know, putting in a low record. I think this album actually did quite well from memory. A lot of people loved it apparently, and I might be wrong here, but I think it even won some Grammy notifications or something, possibly country awards as well. And this is a country rock affair in a modern setting, and I just have to say, I don't like modern sounding country. There's this weird vibe that surrounds it all, and it just doesn't sound genuine. It's this weird kind of, I don't know how to describe it, I guess. It's this polished level of pop meets country, but pop isn't really the right term. It's, got these weird beats throughout it in regards to it, and it sounds so disjointed. I know that if you're a true country fan, if you're a true country rock fan, of course, talking about defending old guard, Johnny Cash as king, that type of stuff, Willie Nelson, amazing, then you will absolutely you'll find this album an abhorrent mess. You will hate this record. But I know that it's also going to have its fans as well. I get that. I understand that a newer age of country fans are going to be listening to this and going, yeah, this is good, this is my style of music or something. Because, yes, it does follow a trend of what is going on at the moment out there. And I have Yellowstone, I guess, to thank in regards to listening to some of these tracks or something like that. Or rather, the newer sounding country music. But at the end of the day, this is not an album for me, and it's so weird to be hearing Post Malone sing about this album, or sing in regards to this style. And it's also made doubly worse by the weird stories and shit that he says on this record, and I just think it's an absolutely terrifying idea that Post Malone may one day continue, or may continue down this path even further and expand his horizons. So, can you imagine if, Post Malone hung up his reins and said, alright, I'm giving up, I'm going to be doing country rock from now on. It's just such a weird thought. But then again, he's done it before. He started in metal, then he obviously moved into that kind of pop, rap and all the rest of that, and now he's moved into country. Who knows? Maybe a couple of years later he might move into elevator music or something, I don't know. At the end of the day, he's Post Malone. He'll do what he does. Yes, I know. What do I have against country rock musicians? Well, in a degree, this is like country rock doing something different again. We've got another musician, someone who's very famous within the country scene in regards to Dolly Parton, of course, and now she's going and trying to do this whole rock sounding effort. Dolly Parton goes rock. Why would you bother? Why would you bother doing this? And she's doing 2 albums, not one, but 2 albums of covers. And it's an interesting thing on paper, I guess. Let's see Dolly Parton, the musician who's pushing her 60s, maybe 70s, do a bunch of covers, and then try them in a rock effort as well, with the guest musicians who originally sang them songs back in the day in some of the instances. It's got the tick of approval as far as when you're looking at it, but it just feels so lifeless, I guess. It's hard to do a covers album. And I know a lot of people will say, but musicians have been doing covers for many years, and sometimes have been doing so very well. And yeah, you would have a point if you're looking towards, I don't know, Led Zeppelin, for example, who famously would take these covers and make it their own, change the style up, and just incorporate it into their own sound. Dolly Parton just is going through the motions as far as this music is concerned, with a backing band, of course, making these tracks. It's just a band that is performing these music, and then it's obviously Dolly's vocals over the top of it. It's just such a dumb affair, and it's way too long. This album is way, way too long. You should cut at least half the tracks off this, maybe even release it as 2 separate CDs, I guess, at the end of the day, if you felt it necessary. But in the end, it's such a long record that just is not something I will be returning to. Definitely not to be definitely not playing this in full. 100%, I'm never going to be playing that one in full again. And, it's just such a weird one. I don't know. Dolly Parton going rock, performing covers. And the last time a double covers album was successful, well, the only time actually, was Metallica. And there's a lot of differences to be made in regards to those 2 bands. So yes, Dolly Parton's album sucks, and I would avoid it and state that this is easily one of the worst albums of the year. Well, talk about low-hanging fruit. Yes, Paris Hilton is going to be one of the worst albums that I listened to this year. And yes, I did a review on this album, so you can check that out if you really want an in-depth analysis. But I don't know how much depth you can get in regards to a Paris Hilton record. This thing is very vapid, and it's very spacious. It just sounds like absolute garbage at the end of the day. Very polished pop sounding affair. And of course, a pop record's going to be low, according to me, the man who likes metal and all this other stuff. But I did listen to this album, and I need something to fill a spot. And this is knocking off another one from the list at the end of the day, I guess. So maybe that's something that's taken away from it. But Paris Hilton's record is just an empty vase bottle, similar to her line of perfume. You know what? It's so crap. It's overpriced, bejeweled looking piece of shit, and should never be listened to anyone who has an interest in actual music. I just think this is bad music that you should never listen to. It's probably designed to be torture music at the end of the day. You might play this for your worst enemies for 24 hours straight to keep them up. I don't know, but that's what it kind of feels like at the end of the day. Could you really say that you want to attend a Paris Hilton concert? Who's going there? I don't know. Maybe the Jersey Shore people will be rocking up and, oh yeah, Paris Hilton, show us how it's done. Ugh, couldn't think of anything worse at the end of the day. That's right, we're talking about Skillet, people, and yeah, this album just sucks, people. I mean, I don't even know what to even say about it at this point. It's such an empty sounding affair. It's just dull, lifeless. I can't believe there are people out there who will defend this album, thinking it's one of the best things they've ever written, if not what any other band has even written this year. I would say that you've got to be lying, because the amount of good songs would fill this little frying pan here. So yes, this little frying pan contains all the good tracks Skillet wrote this year. Notice how it's empty. So, if anything, there's just one really bad point that I want to make, and that is, my faith, my family, and everything else. These lyrics are just absolutely woeful at the end of the day. You're not the guys from the bloody Fast and Furious soundtrack. You can't be running around saying, my faith, my family, my friends, and all the rest of that crap. It's just a generic rip-off, it's just a knockoff, it's just dull. It's just such a dumb sounding album at the end of the day, and this is not a revolution. This is not starting a revolution. It's probably not even ending any revolutions either. But at the end of it, it's such a dumb album. And, Skillet will always be that band that I can always think, oh yeah, I know that name. I can never recall any tracks. And this album is the same. I don't know any of the names of these tracks. I don't want to know the names of any of these tracks. I'm glad that I've done this review and forgotten it now. It's only been a few weeks even since I did that one. So that just says volume, that speaks volumes in regards to that record. Highly forgettable, very dumb, and just leave it. Because let's face it, if you're going to be listening to other kind of Christian rock out there, there's better shit. Go listen to Creed or something. I know that they hate being lumped into that one, but go listen to Creed anyway. They're much better than what this is. Yeah, did I just mention that Creed was a better band to listen to? Well, maybe I talked too early here, because yes, we've got Scott Stapp's newest album, Higher Power, that is on the list. And I put it up this high because at the end of the day, Scott can't write music by himself. It's very terrible and very generic record, and it just is very evident when you're listening to this album that it's just trying to be recycled crap. And you're better off trying to recycle real stuff at the end of the day. You might make the world a better place. But this album is just not very good. And you go listen to it, you can tell it's just trying to tick the boxes, not even hitting the nostalgia factor of the process. So you're failing in several aspects as to where this record lies. When it's trying to be heavy, and it's not really, and then it's trying to be that whole 90s, 90s grunge-ish, post-grunge type of sound, it's not. It's just too heavy for it. And it just is such a damned shitty album. I don't even know what more I can say at the end of the day that hasn't been said, because when Creed was announced that they finally had reformed, and I was actually kind of excited. It was like living up to that moment where you got that good going kind of mean, good going. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Creed to begin with, but damn, do their singles slap hard. And then you come up to this and you're thinking, geez, what happened? I know a few years have passed, of course, since Creed has just faded into almost obscurity, but what happened? Because you guys could actually write songs. Now, Scott has done this solo album and showed us he cannot, and I have to even wonder what will happen if Creed does write a new album, how it will sound, and where it will be placed on a list such as this. So it makes me very much a very cautious person moving into the future. This was not going to be a great record, and I would highly avoid it at any type of situation you can, because it's just crap. I think it's highly ironic this album begins with the line, "I have no regrets," because yes, we all have a lot of regrets in life, and in particular if you have listened to this album. Trapped is just absolute crap at the end of the day, and I just can't, I can't make that point much more clearer. Don't listen to Trapped whenever you can. It's just such a dull and shitty affair. And this album in particular is just proof that no one gives a shit about this album at the end of the day, and the band to go with it. It's just such a weird presence in the musical scene. At least with the aforementioned Skillet, when it comes to butt rock and these bands in particular, they manage to blur the lines almost into the parody. But Trapped, they just embody the whole vision of what butt rock actually is. This is just the epitome of what divorced dad rock actually sounds like. It's just so boring, lifeless, and all the rest of it that you can imagine. It's unimaginative. You can just put your mind on cruise control, listen to this album and think, nod my head, it's good. No, it's not. There's nothing to this. There's no challenge. It's all the same music, and it had such a weird format when it was released. Like, all the singles were nearly released prior to the album, or at least in Australia where I'm from, it seemed like that. I think there was something like 7 or 8 singles released from this album. There's only a couple of tracks on here, so at the end of the day, I could almost listen to this whole record before the record was actually released. And I get the idea that you want to hype up your album, so let's release a few singles. But if you're pushing the whole album out before it's almost even released, what's the freaking point? There's nothing for me to go back to, especially if you don't like the singles that have been leading up to it. If you listen to, 3 out of 8 singles and gone, I don't like this, you're not going to listen to the whole album, are you? So yeah, it's just such a weird whole ordeal, the way it was released, the sound of the music, the production even is pretty shady in times, and it's just, dumb. Don't listen to this album. That's why it's in this top 3 spot. Also, a special shout out to Chris Taylor Brown for being a piece of shit human being, and I think it's amazing that the internet has also rallied behind the YouTube channel of Trapped and bombarded the comment section with such things like mixing them up with Creed and stating, I think that 6 Feet Under song was really amazing that you wrote back in the day. So kudos to the internet for doing that. I heard a comment once that went along the lines that Ronnie Rack is only famous in the music industry because he just seems to go out and troll and make all kinds of commentary on other bands and just bagging them out. And that's pretty much what he is. He is a troll with a band, everyone. That is what he is, and that's what he has embodied and come to accept, especially on this latest record. I mean, you don't make an album cover like this in regards to, your arrest from back in the day when you were kicked out of that band, back in, way back, what was that, 2007? You made this album cover after your mugshot. And I think that just says everything that we need to know about you at the end of the day. You may call yourself the unpopular monster, but you are making yourself the unpopular monster. And it's just, no one cares about your music almost. We just want to hear what you have to say about people, because you can talk shit online. You can talk shit for so long that I would think that you're a sewage runoff from goddamn Mumbai or something, because there is so much crap spewing forth from your mouth, not even when the record ends, it just continues online, that I don't even think, what is this guy doing? I think you're an online personality at this point, more so than a musician, because the music on hand here is abhorrent, it's terrible, it's a reckless affair, and I just think it's the most boring batshit album at the end of the day. You got a pretty decent band behind you, and it could be something, it's just that you're holding them back, and that's the end of the... these guys, whoever are in the band, go forth and do something else, because you can do so much better. At the end of the day, you're just getting overshadowed by an online persona who is just an absolutely toxic person. So just move on, because you are going to do better than that. So Endless Monster is, this record, or whatever the hell it is, the Unpopular Monster, is just such a crap record, and I just hated every second I was listening to it. And I'm just glad that it's moving forward. I can finally discuss this album one last time before the year is out and just move on, because this is just shit. So a special inclusion before we jump into this list, and that's going to be the Cancelled EP by Motley Crue, a god-awful record that is not going to make this list, because I feel like it would be cheating if I do, but it certainly deserves a spot in the top 10, or anyone else's top 10 for that matter. The EP was decided to be cut because it is an EP. It's only 3 tracks long, but each of these tracks are just such a terrible mess at the end of it. And you're thinking, what has Motley Crue done at the end of the day? You've had years off, you were not going to tour, you were not going to reform, you did that, and you did that again. You have John Five as well on guitars, a very talented musician who has come into the fold and could have helped you out at the end of it. And what do you have to show? A terrible collection of 2 songs plus 1 cover done in the most atrocious way. You know, and that is just the biggest downfall at the end of the day. Is like, yeah, I wasn't expecting anything great from Motley Crue, but when you're going to do covers such as bloody, Fight for Your Right, a song that is over 40 years old, of course, and done by the Beastie Boys in a much better fashion, and then do it in a terrible cover when you're approaching, the age of 60s or 50s, that is just a sign that, yeah, we get it. You rocked hard back in the day, but you are no longer party animals. Hell, most of you have had bloody liposuction, rehab, and nearly overdosed. So I don't think you're going to be rocking hard anymore by partying harder than you did in the 80s. No one's going to party harder than you did. You guys did it, alright? Fantastic. You get a gold medal. Pin it up on your wall with the rest of the accolades that you've won over your life. But it's just such on the nose in regards to this message. Yeah, we get it. And then, of course, you have cancelled the track, and yeah, people are probably going to try to cancel Motley Crue, but they won't. No one can cancel music once it's out there. It's a very hard process to do so, trust me. If there are black metal musicians out there still writing shit, or satanic bands in particular, and they're not cancelled, then I guarantee that you won't be either. Hell, if Mayhem is still able to tour, you're going to be just fine. So yeah, Motley Crue is going to be fine, but this EP is not. Don't listen to it, even if it is only 12 minutes long. You got better things that you can do in that time, wink. Another shout out goes to Mushroomhead's newest album called The Devil, which at the end of the day was just another basic bitch butt rock record, and it's just such a shame to see this band fall so far. Back in the day, they were actually interesting for their eclectic styles of music, mixing in, of course, those Mr. Bungle influences, and making this intriguing style of music that they had as their own signature sound. But now they've fallen away from there, and they're unabashedly saying that they have sold out as well, pretty much just saying, we're changing our style in order to, I guess, become more mainstream. Nothing wrong with that. People have done it in the past, people will continue to do so in the future too. However, the mainstream that they have gone for here is just so abhorrently terrible and bland that I don't care for it. There are the odd 1 or 2 tracks though that do redeem it, so that's why it's not in my top 10 list. But overall, this record is very abysmal, and I just would avoid it at all costs. Another shout out, of course, goes to Alien Ant Farm's newest record, Mantras, and this album was very dull. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's just a very dull album. There's nothing that really stands out. I think it's a fantastic record by the band. It's certainly not a comeback album, and I know that when I did my review on it, I copped a lot of flack. Yes, I might have been very harsh in regards to my review, but that's because the album itself really doesn't have anything redeeming it. And I did make the mistake in my review of stating that, they were lucky they didn't do any covers, which was actually wrong because they did a cover of a George Michael song, or rather a Wham song, with the track Everything She Wants. Now, this is a very ballsy move considering the fact that really Alien Ant Farm are only famous for the cover, of course, of Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. It's how they got famous, everyone knows them for that, and none of their own material. So the fact that they, I guess, made another cover for their newest album, the first in many, many years, and, launched it as well, I think it was a single possibly, that just speaks volumes as to the, I guess, idiocracy within this record. I, for one, would not want to release an album which has any covers if I want to make my own name in the music industry. Especially if your one-hit wonder is riding on the fact that it was a covers, of course, by a well-known musician, and a fantastic song at that. So I know that, of course, the band have history regarding George Michael. I think they performed alongside his memorial or something like that, but at the end of the day, this is just not a great record, and I stand by what I said in my review. Maybe one day I will do as one of the commenters said on that video and come back to it at a later date, but at this stage, I don't think I've changed my mind at all. And the last shout out is going to be to Imagine Dragons' newest album, Loom, because why not? Yes, the number one spot goes to Thor himself, and this has just been such a shit album. I don't even mean this is the number one spot for 2024. I mean this is probably the worst album that I've ever listened to in my entire life. It's just a shit record. I don't even know where to begin here. So Thor is a bodybuilder who then turned out to be a metal musician. Interesting, I guess. There's a little aspect there that could be curious. I remember reading that point before I jumped into the record and going, oh, that's curious, this could be an intriguing sounding affair. And then I'm listening to the record and the guy sounds a bit like Iggy Pop. Okay, that's intriguing, you know, I like Iggy Pop, I like his vocals, but at least Iggy Pop does something. At least Iggy Pop can write, for example. At least Iggy Pop knows how to sound interesting within his range. Thor has no range, unfortunately. And this record is such a monogamy of mess, it is such a hot pile of dog shit, that I still feel it wafting over here as we speak about it now. This record in particular is the epitome of what dads would be sounding like if they were jamming well past their 50s in a garage at the moment, sinking a bunch of beer. You know, they're having a case race and then they're deciding, hey, let's play some music while we're at it. This is what the album sounds like, because the production is just shithouse, terrible, and there's reason for it, which we'll mention as well, but, you know, it's such a crap as far as lyrics goes, music, production, everything that you can imagine. It's just horrendous. It's this horrendous sounding affair that is just absolute nails on a chalkboard at the end of the day. So if you weren't aware, this record is pretty much two kind of EPs slapped together, with the first half of the album being new material and the second half just being a bunch of, I don't know, outtakes and demos and other stuff like that. And that is the part that just really gets me. So the outtakes in particular, let's talk about these ones first of all, because I want to say Flight of the Striker, for example, the unreleased track from 1987, is just this repetitive, on looped, of course, lyrics, and it's just horrendous. It just sounds like someone had a first take of a song and said, yep, fuck it, that'll do, you know. And it's such a bad, I mean, you got to listen to it, you really just do, just flight eagle over and over and over again, and it's just like 4 minutes of that, you know, over and over. It's strike eagle, like, okay, yeah, we got that the first 3 times you said it, I got it, you know, I fully understand it the next 90 times you said it as well. But anyway, you know, regardless, yes, the last half of the album is made up from various outtakes over the rest of the band's career. And that is one thing. If you are using outtakes, then it's not a good sign, is it? Because outtakes are outtakes for a reason. This is not your best material. That's more like a B-sides record. So it's going to be for your super fans, for one, if it's worth it, in particular for another point. I mean, for example, what is it? Smashing Pumpkins released their Rarities B-sides album, Rotten Apples, I believe it was called, and you've got to be a super fan to be really enjoying them, but sometimes they really are really good outtakes as well. I think Pisces Iscariot is also another kind of B-sides record or outtakes one, but done in a different way for various parts of it, and that just shows that even their outtakes are good. Thor's are not. You know, if this is their worst material, I don't want to hear their best material. Let me put it that way. That's just how bad it sounds. And then you come to the first part of the album. So they had something like 7 tracks that they recorded, and they said, all right, we need to add more stuff when it comes to this album, because, you know, there is just more space we need to put. We need to make this a fully fleshed album, but we don't want to write more songs. So obviously they made it with the outtakes. And yeah, the first couple of tracks with songs like, you know, Piece by Piece, 5-0, Let's Go, and of course Ride of the Iron Horse. And Piece by Piece is an interesting one I just want to make a point on here as well, is that, you know, it's about an artist, the lyrics anyway allude to an artist who was never appreciated, I guess, in his time, and many, you know, laughed at in all particular reasons. And it just kind of seems self-deprecating in regards to what this musician probably has faced over his lifetime, I'm guessing, in the industry, because he has been around for some 40 odd years. And I just feel like this is more an inward telling story in regards to what he has. And there's a very obvious reason that you never made it in the metal industry, because you suck. At the end of the day, it's a terrible album. You write terrible music. Please stick to doing something else at the end of it, because this is not your career path. I don't know what your career path is, what your talent in life may be, But please, please, just avoid music in general, because I do not want to be doing any more reviews on Thor. I don't want to be checking out any new releases that'll be coming out. I just don't have the patience in me to go through another record exactly like this. But yeah, the new material was horrendous, and I wouldn't even bother at the end of the day listening to this. It's like the equivalent of wishing that someone would step on Lego. This is what this record is. It's the audio equivalent of stepping on Legos at the end of the day. So that was my list, of course, of the top 10 worst albums, and geez, what a year it's been. There has been some absolute shockers at the end of the day. I just don't think there is much more I can add to what has already been said in regards to these, but just remember that pretty much every single one of these episodes also has a 5-minute review that you can check out if you want a more in-depth analysis in regards to the record. So thank you very much for tuning in for this 2024 special, of course. And make sure to comment below if there's anything that you wanted to give a shout out to. What was your least favorite record? I have a funny feeling that a lot of people are going to mention the Linkin Park album, but maybe that's just me talking, who knows. I want to hear what your thoughts are at the end of the day though, so make sure to drop those comments. I'll reply to them when I can. And have a great rest of the year. Enjoy Christmas and enjoy New Year's with friends, family, whoever you're going to enjoy it with. And make sure to stay spicy out there. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content, because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.